Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you may be. My name's Andrew Elwick. I'm the Head of Technology and Creative Industries for the Department for International Trade's Investment Services team. And we support all new foreign direct investment clients coming into the UK, setting up either their first operation or perhaps expanding on their initial operation, and supporting them with information, facilitation and advice along the step of their investment journey. Over the course of the session today, you'll be hearing from some experts and me on why the UK is the place to be if you're an aspiring tech business, and how to go about making it as successful as possible. As Robbie mentioned, a bit of housekeeping. We have Q&A on the right-hand side of the chat function. There will shortly be a poll which opens in that section. If you could answer these questions to the fullest of your capability, please, just so we can get an idea of what the audience looks like in terms of their profile. And then followed by a short presentation from myself and our partners, Rochester PR, JMB Partnership and Burgess Salmon, before a panelist session and the Q&A with DIT's very own technology specialist, Chris Moore. And you'll get to hear from a few new market entrants to the UK, some tech companies that are set up over the last several months or several years, so you can get to hear their journey. Obviously, the world's a very strange place at the moment, but I think the one thing everybody is fairly clear on is that technology, in one way, shape or form, is going to help us get out of the pandemic, help us grow from the pandemic, and actually our dependency on tech is going to only grow from here on in. So essentially, we're going to look at all the different areas and different reasons why tech in the UK will be as strong as ever following the pandemic, and how you can potentially or how different industries will potentially amend and adapt tech to help with the effectiveness of their business. I'm going to talk through a few short slides now just to give you some highlights to set the context for the session, and also show where some potential opportunities for your business may be. So in terms of some quick headlines, so the turnover of UK digital tech businesses reached over 200 billion last year, which enabled the UK to be number one in Europe for tech scale-ups. And that is really where the UK excels, that period from scaling up to becoming commercially viable and hopefully as successful as possible. 95 companies in the UK are now valued between 250 and $800 million. And that's a 27% increase on the previous year. And again, another huge increase. UK digital tech companies raised 10.1 billion in venture capital last year. And again, that's a huge increase on the previous year before. And this has allowed us again to become third in the world in terms of the highest tech investment. So behind only the USA and China, but actually in terms of tech investment, we in the UK actually have more tech investment than France and Germany combined. And again, just to really hammer home the point about increases and the really positive trajectory we're on, there's been a 30% increase in digital tech projects to the UK in the previous year. So these are either new entrants to the market, like some of yourselves, or tech projects being carried out by some of the large corporate businesses that are already here. And all of this, growth has allowed the digital tech sector to grow 6 times bigger than the rest of the UK economy, and it now employs almost 10% of the UK workforce. Obviously, everybody's here for London Tech Week, and whilst London is Europe's biggest tech hub, it's not the only game in town. The UK's tech leadership accelerates beyond just London, so 5 of the top 10 best European cities for tech investment are in the UK. So London, Cambridge, Oxford, Manchester and Bristol, with Manchester actually being the fastest tech cluster, with a massive 277% increase in investment from 2018 to 2019. Oxford and Cambridge have more combined unicorns than Paris, and Manchester has the same number as Paris and Amsterdam. And actually we have 6 tech hubs which have produced more than 2 unicorns. So they're listed along the bottom there, Edinburgh being Scotland, London obviously in the south, Manchester, Leeds in the centre. We really have an all-encompassing tech sector which spans every element of the UK. And as I mentioned, it's growing massively. One of the reasons for this is skills and talent. So we are a hotbed for tech talent. So actually the UK despite its relatively small compared to some of the much larger economies. Number of people actually employ 5% of all high-growth tech workers globally, ahead of Japan, France and India. 4 of the world's top 10 universities and 8 of Europe's top 20 reside here, which helps with the UK talent pool for startups, scale-ups and SMEs. And actually a lot of the UK companies, the larger UK companies, are helping supporting these niche skills. So Sage, for example, which is the UK's largest indigenous software development company, they run year in, year out sort of apprenticeship type schemes to help build hundreds of potential tech skills for the future. And the apprenticeship program and different higher educational qualifications are now have a permanent place in the UK educational system, including over 30 different qualifications in artificial intelligence. So we have a huge number of accelerators in the UK, helping companies embed in the UK, helping them with links into industry and into finance. Again, that's not just London. So Techstars is one of the larger ones in London, but across the UK we have different ones, including Knight and Codebase. Some are sector specific. So if you are in the digital health space, then there is an accelerator there. If it's more on fashion tech, there is an accelerator there. And we have an awful lot of corporate-backed ones. So Wera, which is the Telefonica one, for example. What really drives the UK, though, is innovation. And we have 2 main focused innovation centres. There's obviously an awful lot more which do feed into this. And these are called Catapult Centres. And there's Catapult Digital, which is focused more on immersive tech, 5G, AI. And then there's Future Cities, which is around actually making the urban environment more efficient, more effective, and encompasses things like IoT and data analytics. But what do we do with this innovation? Well, we use this innovation in industry. So in terms of the innovative subsectors we have in the UK, which are really world leading, all the ones along the left-hand side there, artificial intelligence, data, Internet of Things, smart cities, cyber, robotics, AR, VR, blockchain, they are all now growing and sustainable sectors in their own right in the UK. And they are now being applied to and have been applied to over the last several years to the likes of agriculture, healthcare, medical, clean growth, which is a huge one at the moment, obviously financial services, mobility in urban, but with the way COVID has impacted the world, education and retail, again, are really ripe for taking new tech appliances, and also the government and public sector. GovTech is a huge area and is an area where governments across the world and in the UK are going to have to embrace tech to help become more efficient. So in summary, just 3 things to remember. So the UK has the talent and the skills to help grow your business. We have an innovative ecosystem that allows those skills to blossom. But most importantly, you can raise an awful lot of money, but you can make an awful lot of money in the UK. And just a nod to COVID-19. So obviously it's delayed an awful lot of things, but what can you still do? Well, actually, you can still register your company here. You can still open a bank account and apply for a visa. You can access all DIT services, either by contacting me at the end of the session or your local DIT rep, and open your virtual office. So a virtual office allows you to do more in the UK without being here. So I won't go through this slide intensely, but it allows you to set up a legal entity without a physical presence. Obviously then you can start to run your business and start growing your business in the UK without having to worry about running an office. And we have a large cross-section of service providers who can help you on this journey, one of which I shall hand over to now. So thanks for your time. I shall hand over to Joanna.
Thanks, Andrew. So I'm going to give you a few tips for establishing a presence here in the UK, getting a profile, because in our view, that's incredibly important in terms of being successful in the UK. You have to manage your company and your brand's reputation to get seen and get heard. And the reason why I know this or believe this is obviously because this is what we've been doing for the last 10 years. We specialise just in market entry, work across loads of different clients from all sorts of territories. So in the last year from Australia, Czech Republic, Denmark, Turkey, hello Reddit, the US. And what we say applies to all types of tech companies, whether you're B2B or B2C. The typical sort of project we might be running a social media program, helping on collateral, launch events, or media relations campaigns. So the UK is a fantastic place to do business, as Andrew has already said. But it's also challenging and extremely competitive because you're not the first to work out that it's a great place to do business. So to be really successful, you have to move from the sort of the bottom left as a not known brand up to becoming a trusted brand as quickly as you can. So this is where the type of PR and marketing that we do for clients comes in. So here are the tips that I wanted to give you about getting to be known. You're not obviously trying to aim to be the best kept secret. That really would be a waste of your time. So the first piece of advice is do something. However much you can afford to do from time and money, do something. The next few are all about you understanding the opportunity here in the UK, and it's all about you asking questions of yourself and of others. So firstly, get to know your market. Each market here has a rhythm of its own. So do you know it well enough to launch here? Do you know the key dates, times of the year, the key opinion formers, and how it works? And is that different from other markets? Then get to know your competition and where they sit in the sector. Is it very dynamic? Is there lots going on? What are your competitors doing? What are they saying about themselves? How can you stand out from them? And which media are going to be most important for you? And ask yourself the question, do you have something genuinely new to say or offer? And next, work out why you're relevant for the UK. Who's going to be most interested in you? Why should they be interested? What problem do you solve? And remember that in this day and age, brand purpose is as if not more important than the product or service itself today. And then take a long, hard look at your collateral. Does it work? Is it likely to work in the UK, given everything you've just learned from doing your research above? For example, look at your website, your UK-facing website. Is it going to take some advice? Is it going to resonate with a UK audience? And then look at all the media opportunities open to you. So paid, owned, and shared is how a lot of people describe media opportunities now. And I'll show you a visual of that in a moment. So you've done lots of research, then activate a plan, and it should be a plan. Firstly, don't overreach or overpromise. Don't set up, for example, on every social media channel and then fail to fill them in or post on them. Just start with one if that's most important. Don't claim, be authentic. Don't claim to be something that you're not. Don't say you are the leading X or the most innovative Y if you're not, because people will find you out. And then lastly, choose the right combination of all the many, many tactics that you could choose. Choose the ones that are going to give you the most impact in the UK. It's tempting to try and do loads of things, but really you're probably not going to have the time or the budget to do all of them. So stick to the things that will make you most successful, most likely to make you successful. Here's that slide I mentioned. You can find loads of different variations of this on the internet, but it is really useful as a checklist almost for thinking what you've got and where you could use your content. So, it could be through media relations campaigns, it could be through social media, it could be by writing white papers, but it's a really useful thing for you to think about what do you have already and what might be relevant for the UK. And the last thing I would say is to be adaptable. It's really important that you listen to feedback and you get feedback from the UK market. If you've got trusted advisors, customers, listen to them if they're telling you that something needs to change to give yourself the most possible chance or the best possible chance of success here in the UK. So thank you very much. If ever we can be of any help, or if you want to ask us any tricky questions, just get in touch. And I'm now going to hand over to James.
Thanks, Joanna. Hi, everyone. My name is James Blakemore. I'm the Managing Director of J&B Partnership. We specialise in working with international companies, helping them enter the UK market. We offer a range of services to our clients, but predominantly around setting up of meetings and opportunities to find those first customers. We've been 15 years doing that. Around 80% of our clients are international businesses. So we do know those challenges that companies face when first coming into the UK, and some of the subtle differences between one market and the UK market, and how to overcome those changes. In terms of some advice for any company coming to the UK market or any market in terms of sales, as Joanna said, having all the information there, having social media, all those things have a massive part of the picture, as is traditional PR. But alongside that and in support of that, there's all other things in terms of marketing, in terms of telemarketing, trade shows, events. If you did one thing on its own, it's quite difficult to get any traction in the market, but by combining those things, you get much more effect for the efforts you're putting in. As an example, if you are managed and fortunate to get published an article, if you then send that out by email and use that as content that's validated by the industry, it gets so much more traction than if you were to write it yourself. So do look at all those different opportunities, whether it's trade shows, whether it's PR, whether it's telemarketing, all are good routes to be strong and get the traction you're looking for. In terms of some tips and advice, just some things over the years that we've heard and seen from companies who've come over to the UK. Things like price point. One of the things that's sort of missed quite often is companies might just look at their own prices in their own country and literally convert the exchange rate, and that's their price point now in the UK. We would say take a bit of time, research your competition. Is there an opportunity to increase your margin or actually to get support or get the traction you're looking for? Do you need to take a cut on that margin and lower your prices for the market entry? So really do take your time and research that. In terms of news agenda, it's looking at what's going on currently in the UK, what the press are talking about, what are politicians talking about. Does that give you an opportunity for your product or service? Are there talks of increased spending in certain industries in terms of infrastructure, construction? These are all things that are being talked about currently at the moment. So again, really understanding what the news agenda in the UK and taking that time to research it is really important. In terms of some little things you can do, such as a UK telephone number and local presence. Where companies struggle is if they're talking to the market and they're doing lots of activities, but the website doesn't back that up. So if there's no UK address, no UK telephone number, you're losing that opportunity to convince convince your potential customers that you're serious about the UK market. In normal situation, we would talk about network, and obviously that ideally that's face-to-face. Obviously, currently at the moment that's not possible in most cases. But again, events like today, other networking events are fantastic routes to be able to build your own contact base here in the UK. Recruitment. If you're fortunate to be in a position to set up a UK company and employ your first employees, obviously the first employee is the most important. It's the person who is 100% of your business here in the UK. And sometimes companies make a mistake of maybe employing someone who happens to live in the UK but doesn't have any industry or contacts within a specific sector they're looking to work in. It might be worth exploring and understanding, paying a little bit more to recruit somebody who has a contact book, who has those contacts who he or she can get in touch with in order to start the business. One of the best examples of a client we've ever worked with who had a really successful first 12 months in the UK market where they employed 2 of their competitors' salespeople. Quite an aggressive way of going about it, but something that definitely worked for them. So do take your time on making sure you recruit smart. Lastly, just some feedback from the current market. LinkedIn response rates have increased considerably. Direct message, email and Sales Navigator are fantastic tools, especially when you're first looking to explore the UK. Are quite cost effective in terms of return on investment, and the traction has been there as people in the UK have been over the past 6 months working from home or furloughed. LinkedIn has been a great tool to still be able to connect to people if they're outside the office. And we have seen email open rates increase across a number of our projects by as much as 20%. Again, we think because as people are working from home, they have a little bit more time to look through their email inbox than maybe if they were in the office, talking to colleagues and so forth. Telemarketing has been slightly affected in terms of the numbers of people we're able to get hold of who are based in the office. One slight benefit of that has been that people are more willing to give direct telephone numbers out. So in the long run, being able to get hold of decision makers has increased. And that's the end of my presentation. I'd like to hand over to Sarah.
So I am Sarah Kenshall. I am a director in the technology and communications practice at Burgess Salmon, and I specialise in scale-up companies. So I'm going to talk to you about the friendliness, in fact, of the UK legal framework for companies coming here, scaling up. And I've tried not to make it too sectorally focused, so I'm going to talk quite generally on some hot topics and how the current legal framework assists. So, hot topics, cybersecurity. So, cybersecurity here in the UK is regulated on a sectoral basis pretty well. Of course, we have the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, which has been implemented in the UK under the Data Protection Act, and we'll come to that. However, the cybersecurity regulatory framework is wider than personal data. It is big data sets, which may not be personal. It is networks and it is systems. The centerpiece of this framework is the NIS regulation, which is the Network and Information Systems Regulation 2018. Now, this is a European piece of legislation that's been implemented in the UK, so anyone coming from Europe will be familiar with it. However, it does not cover, it's not as wide as the European implementation because we already had equivalent regulation in, for example, the telecom sector and the financial services sector. So this regulation deals with nationally critical sectors such as energy, water, health, etc., etc. Telecoms, which I just mentioned earlier, which isn't part of NIS regulations, is a particular note here in the UK because the recent government's telecoms supply chain review has done quite a bit to try and improve trust in our rollout of 5G, so that we should have a world-class 5G rollout with, it also takes in Internet of Things devices as well. We are looking at the moment, we're consulting, the government's consulting, to develop quite a high threshold of security measures, which will be overseen by the telecoms regulator, Ofcom. At the moment, these are going to be published by way of guidance. So if you are in that sector, in the telecoms or IoT sector, you're coming into the UK, have a look on the Ofcom's website and give you guidance as to the sort of thresholds of regulation and security regulation you need to hit. One of the key things to bear in mind is you are now responsible, you will be responsible for controlling your supply chain. So whatever security measures you have to take on, you have to flow those down to your supply chain. So whoever the telecoms company who's liaising with it, who's working with the consumer or indeed business, the end user, takes the responsibility to make sure all its supply chain are compliant. How are you compliant? Well, you have a look on the Ofcom's website. It'll give you a sense of the sort of measures you need to put in place. A lot of it will be just due diligence, making sure you're comfortable with your suppliers, and of course contractual. At the legal side of things that we see across my desk, we've been doing cybersecurity gap analysis, where we look at the contracts that a client is entering into to see that its supply chain have enshrined, for example, their security policies at the contractual level. So actually not as complex as you might think, quite straightforward, and it means that you generate good customer trust. And outside of those sectors, of course, we have the National Cybersecurity Centre, which provides a very good, I think it's called the Cyber Assessment Framework, which is a good roadmap for what you might want to put in place if you're not in one of the regulated sectors under the NIS regulations. So that's another good port of call to have a look at, and they're run by, or they're part of GCHQ. So then I come to data protection. So, of course, we all know about the GDPR. It would be strange if we didn't. We have the Data Protection Act, which implements the GDPR. It is essentially the same as the EU standards. So how is that going to work post-Brexit? Well, I think one of the things that you will probably be interested if you're a foreign company coming to set up in the UK is how are you going to deal with your data transfers? Chances are you going to be transferring data between the UK and other jurisdictions. So hopefully we'll have an adequacy decision. So an adequacy decision is it's where the European Commission takes a formal decision. It's a formal piece of legislation, one of its tools, to decide that another jurisdiction is adequate, provides equivalent protections to the EU. For example, classic example, Switzerland has an adequacy decision, which enables the free flow of data within the GDPR framework. recently, and so actually, yes, so when we get an adequacy decision, I would expect we should, because we have very similar legislation, they're the same. It may be tied up in trade negotiations, I don't know. And there is one possible obstacle, which is, of course, we have agreement with the US on access to electronic data for the purposes of countering serious crime. It is possible that you could argue that that would affect a level of protection to EU subjects on the onwards transfer to the US. This is connected to a recent court, ECJ court case called Schrems, which invalidated the US, only a couple months ago, invalidated the US EU Privacy Shield, which was the means by which a lot of data transfers between the EU and the US. So Schrems also possibly could impact the adequacy decision, because of course we transfer data to the US, and if the US isn't considered to hit the right levels of protection because of the access that the security agencies get, it could impact us. But I think that's low risk, because recently we had the UN rapporteur came over to the UK last year and gave us a very clean bill of health on our levels of privacy protection, and it looked at the security regimes and access. So hopefully that will be quite smooth and we'll get an adequacy decision. If we do not, never fear, international transfers take place all around the world, and we use what's known as the standard contractual conditions, which endeavour to impose EU standards of data protection, which travel with the data when it goes overseas. And these are standard form contracts that we can put in place, or you can put in place. And in fact, the ICO has a very nice little template that you can use, which will help you put them in place quite quickly. So hopefully that will be one of the means of transferring data post Brexit. And there are other means as well, which I just don't have time to go into now. But as I said, there are ways and means, and I expect it to be reasonably smooth post Brexit in achieving the data transfers, although maybe in a couple of weeks where you have to put some paperwork in place. Next is artificial intelligence, liability and ownership. Well, so that I don't run out of time, I'm going to be very quick on this. So the next question is liability for the output of AI tools. This is important, and powerful AI tools are being created. Well, the UK is a good jurisdiction for AI because we don't believe we need further legislation to accommodate liability or indeed ownership. The existing laws of contract, tort, copyright, confidentiality, all these are there, and the recent Law Tech Delivery Panel has looked at these questions and does not believe it needs further legislation. The current law handles it reasonably effectively. And then I finally finish with smart contracts, and I'm probably out of time. So just to say, I wrote about this a couple of years ago, and my view then was, and it still is now, that smart contracts are easily handled under UK laws of contract. And the Law Tech Delivery Panel has recently looked at that as well and agreed that laws of contract work perfectly well for smart contracts, which of course are part of automation. So that too should be straightforward, and so your customers can have trust in your smart contracts, the use of your AI tools within the UK. Data, I trust, will flow smoothly enough once we exit the EU, and of course cybersecurity will actually be world class. So that was a very quick canter through some of the things, the hot topics, and how the legal framework here in the UK should assist you. I'll now hand over to Chris Moore for his Q&A text session, and the slides can come down now.
Thanks very much, Sarah, and thanks to all of the other presenters this morning, Joanna, James and Andrew. My name is Chris Moore. I am a technology specialist working for the Department for International Trade. In that role, I support companies that are looking to set up in the UK for the first time, or if they're already here, to expand their existing businesses. Currently, I support a number of different markets: Latin America, Europe, Middle East, and some selected Asian markets. But in the past, I've also worked with companies from North America and from Africa as well. So the areas that I particularly focus on are things like artificial intelligence, data science, cloud computing, enterprise software, smart cities, IoT, cybersecurity, and data centers. So quite a broad mix, and hopefully that will resonate with many of the companies who are participating today. Now, before we go on to the other panel session, what I'd like to do is suggest ask each of the presenters one quick question, which hopefully will be relevant to the audience. So I can start with you, Andrew. You mentioned, I think, on your last slide about some things that you can do now in terms of beginning to prepare your journey to the UK. And I think you mentioned virtual offices. If I was a company who said, I want to move to the UK tomorrow, but clearly I can't do that because of the COVID restrictions, but I'd like to pursue this virtual office route, what would I do and what would you advise me to do?
Thanks, Chris. So I would advise that you essentially review, well, DIT can send you as a potential company some information of how you go about setting up your business, and my advice would be to set up and register your business in the UK. You are then a UK entity. That allows you to essentially start being able to get involved with, let's say, things like Innovate UK, which is the innovation and R&D funding mechanism we have in the UK. Essentially, once you're a registered UK business, you are, all intensive purposes, a UK entity, so you can you can exploit the opportunities there. In terms of registering that business, you can do that a number of different ways. The way I would advise doing that is through a professional service firm, a legal or accountancy company, who can essentially, streamline that for you, take away the burden of doing it for a relatively cheap sum. They can set that business up for you, again, to allow you to start trading and potentially making profits and putting them through the UK business. Again, by doing that, you then have got, with a UK entity, it makes things like visas and starting to employ people and building a payroll for your employees an awful lot easier than trying to do it without that UK entity. And it should, in theory, fast-track your business to start bringing in revenue, because, as I say, you've got that UK entity. And also, in the UK, if you're selling into another UK customer, having that UK address, that UK limited company affixed to your company name, it gives the customers more confidence that there is somebody here in the UK they can pick up the phone to and speak to, should they have any queries. So
okay.
It essentially streamlines your revenue generating abilities in the UK.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. And can I go to James now and ask, so you've taken that first step that Andrew has suggested, and you are now thinking about looking at the next step in terms of finding customers. What would you recommend, James, in terms of the amount of time it would take for companies really to start that process? In terms of how much time would they really need to find their first customers?
I think with any company coming into the UK market, you've got to think like a startup. What I mean by that is you've got to, a lot of companies, the reason they're looking to come to the UK is they're very successful in their own market, which is fantastic. And often the best sort of sales for them is word of mouth through the reputation that they've built in the industry that they're working in. Obviously, coming to a new market, coming to the UK where your potential customers might not have heard of you, you do have to, as I said, think like a startup and get your name out there, whether that's through PR, whether that's through obviously key messaging, also making sure that you, as I showed on the slide earlier, those 5 or 6 key stages of things working together, whether that's through LinkedIn, whether that's through social media, whether that's through telemarketing. And so it can take time. Obviously, it's very dependent on what industry you're looking to work in. But if you do those things right at the start and show the market you're serious, then you will get the results in the long run.
Thanks, James. And that brings us logically to Joanna and the PR piece. Now, really, Joanna, you said, I love your diagram. This is a brand we've never heard of to a brand we really trust. And obviously that can take a long time, and it's different for each company. But in terms of these very early stages, when would you suggest a company gets in contact with you when they're thinking about coming to the UK and they've got the virtual office in mind, as Andrew indicated? When should they talk to you?
Thanks, Chris. Well, at any stage, actually, we have clients who've talked to us literally a year before they land in the UK. So they come to us to do some of that work we were talking about earlier about understanding the market, engaging with people. We had a company last year who would come over once a month to meet people and to network and talk to the media and talk about what they're planning to do, because it was a fantastic learning curve for them. And then we've had other people who actually don't get in touch with us until they've got a problem. They may have been in the UK for a bit and things aren't going as well as they'd like, and then they get in touch with us. So sort of anywhere on that scale, but really, I guess for us, in terms of our clients, we'd always advise when you're newsworthy is the best time to say or do something. So, getting everything ready and deciding to launch into the UK is probably your best first opportunity to make a noise and get people to pay attention to you and start engaging with you.
And I guess it's all about making the right noise at the right time, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't do it just for the sake of it. No. Something that's planned and is likely to give you the best results is what you're really aiming for. Absolutely.
Okay, that's fine. And can I come to Sarah finally and ask the same sort of question, because companies sometimes are concerned about their intellectual property, they're concerned about the legal environment they're working in. You mentioned cybersecurity, NIST, and a number of others. And for some companies, if, for instance, you're bringing perhaps quite a sensitive product to market where the IP situation is really important, when would you recommend that they get in contact with you?
It's always best to get in contact early on, even if it's not for a significant, a big piece of work, but sometimes it's worth getting in contact just for a chat actually and start the relationship. There's lots of quick, easy guidance I can probably give, which is worth putting in place at the very beginning. For example, when you start with your trademark in the UK, just make sure you've got the right protections in place. Something as simple as that. It may be that you have a community trademark. Well, post-Brexit, we will still respect the community trademark over here, but there will be changes coming down the line. You might want to consider applying for a UK trademark. So that's just, one simple, short conversation. So have you got your UK trademark in place? Yes, great, all sorted. Another thing to think about is if you don't have a UK trademark or even a community trademark, maybe you just trade under a name that is maybe reasonably descriptive. You can't get a registration at the moment, but you're trying to build that reputation in it. So over here, we could have a chat about that. And of course, the laws of passing off in the UK will probably protect you in a different way, but still it will give you the protection to stop others using your brand whilst you really develop that market awareness. So there are a lot of things we can talk about, just quick and easy, and it may actually help you on your journey.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. That was very, very informative as well. So now, can I ask Robbie to bring up the results of the poll that we had earlier and see if this is giving us some interesting perspectives. Okay, so the first question was, what stage of the market entry are you at? And overwhelmingly, I think the largest percentage is at the really early stage, so thinking and planning and very early days. Then where are you with fundraising? And again, pretty much at seed or pre-seed, the earliest stages. And then in terms of what type of technology, so quite a spread here, educational tech, fintech, and quite a lot of unspecified. And then if you answered other, that one, then how optimistic are you about your journey? So I think quite a lot of people are very enthusiastic, which is really reassuring to see. And then in terms of COVID, well, has it altered your plans? Yes, a little bit. And I think that's pretty much what I would expect, that there was, for the larger percentage, there has been some movement in terms of their planning, but quite a significant percentage, just over a quarter, where no change. So, so from that point of view, I think that does give us a good indication of where companies are. Now, I'd like to now move on to the next part of today's webinar and bring in our participants for the next panel. So could I invite Recit Dogan from Mental UP, Jacqueline Lauren from Lens Life, and Abe Coppell from ProPrep to switch their cameras on if they haven't already. And perhaps I can start with Recit. Could you give us a little bit of a flavour of your organisation and your journey to the UK so far, please?
Yeah, sure. I am Reşit, co-founder of Mental Up Education Games, which was founded in 2015 in Turkey, Istanbul. And then we moved the company headquarter office to London in 2018. We are providing educational games for 4 to 13 years old kids, students. Currently, there are more than 30 employees that are working at Mental Up. And we are working with more than 1,000 schools and have more than 6 million users actually. Our main market is US and other English-speaking countries as the UK, Canada, and Australia. And in few years, we would like to be a dominant, well-known edtech provider, a UK edtech provider company.
That's great, Recit. And 6 million users, that's a really fantastic number.
Yeah.
Was that to get those? I mean, we can come back to that in more detail later, but I was just intrigued as to how you managed to get 6 million people signed up relatively quickly.
It's not so easy. It's not so easy. Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to that in more detail a little bit later. Okay.
Thank you.
Jacqueline, could I, from Lens Life, could I ask you to say a little bit about your story as well?
So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Lens Life Technologies. We actually relocated from Sydney in Australia in June last year. Very small team at the moment, just 4 of us, but we are about to go and do some hiring because we're in private beta at the moment, and we've been very fortunate in that COVID has actually been good for business. It's kind of taken down some barriers that would normally exist with working with some of those larger, I suppose, enterprise clients that you normally end up getting stuck dealing with procurement and all the nasty operational side of those corporates that you don't want to end up dealing with when you're a startup. So yeah, we've kind of embraced the chaos with everything that's going on. It's been good for us. Lens Life is actually an image-centric creative communication platform. So what we've done is reimagine the inbox to prioritize your visual content, so your attachments over text. And this essentially makes distributed creative teams able to work remotely as they otherwise would do in person in the studio, which is obviously really relevant right now because with lockdown and travel restrictions, it's making it really, really hard for people to work in ways that they're accustomed to. So in terms of our experience of the UK, it's been quite good. We've had a lot of interest from VC here, and funnily enough, having left Australia and just come to the Northern Hemisphere, we've had some interest from VC in the US as well. They're all looking at the UK and European market. Obviously, there's a lot of turmoil on home soil at the moment, so that was something that we found quite interesting. And you know, access to customers to London is a hub for creativity. So for us, it was a big driver in moving over here, was just to be closer to customers. So our future plans at the moment are really just to kind of ride the roller coaster that we're currently on and make the best of it. And yeah, work through our MOU list and convert some of those beta clients, I suppose, into paying customers in the next 12 months.
Thanks, Jacqueline. And very, very reassuring to hear that COVID has given you some new opportunities. And I'm absolutely right about that. Suddenly you can now interact with larger organizations in a much more simple, straightforward way, which is kind of gives you more opportunities, but I think speeds the whole process up because they realize they can't do the things that in the ways that they used to, perhaps. So that's great to hear. Okay, let's move then to Itay Coppell Prep. Itay, same thing. Could you give us a little bit of background to your company and your story to come to the UK, please?
Okay. Nice to meet you all. My name is Itay Coppell. I'm one of the co-founder of ProPrep. ProPrep is doing online video tutorials and study guides for STEM courses and mathematics courses at university. We started our operation about 10 years ago in Israel, and currently more than 20% of the Israeli higher education students use our platform, and they are paying customers. 5 years ago, we decided to go west. We thought life is peaceful there, so we created all the content in English. And last year we launched our activities in the UK market. Mainly we did online activity and some land-based activities. And this year, due to the fact of the COVID-19, we accelerated a lot of our marketing efforts, and we expect that we will increase our activity dramatically this year.
Thanks, Itai. And presumably you had a clear plan when you first started up of thinking about the UK and how you were going to approach that market. From your perspective, did it work out as you expected, or did you have to revise the plan as you were thinking about the UK market?
Usually we work B2B and B2C. B2B is approaching directly the universities, and B2C is approaching directly the students. And the B2B processes are much longer than the process of the requirement of the users. And I think that the current situation with the COVID-19, I think that now the universities has more tolerance or more acceptance for using third-party content or for implementation new methods of learning and teaching. But this is yet to be seen, because in the next year we will not see it, but in the next academic year, but in the next 2 or 3 years we will see a huge change in the way that universities work.
So I think from that point of view, despite the fact that COVID has brought many challenges, because it's forcing the way that universities and higher education organizations are working, then presumably it brings some opportunities for you, which is great to hear.
Yeah.
Chris, hi, can I just mention that your camera is pretty blurry and crackly, so you may want to switch it off.
Let me switch the video off for a bit. Okay. So hopefully everybody can hear me still. Can I come back to Resit and talk a little bit about the environment in terms of the funding ecosystem? So, Resit, I'm not sure if you looked at raising funding in Turkey or just in the UK as well. But perhaps you could tell us a little bit about your view of the funding environment in the UK.
Yeah, we got our first investment in Turkey when we were in Turkey 2 years ago. It was a pre-Series A investment, about $500,000, and it was from US impact-based investor. Now we are preparing for Series A in London, and it will be around £2 million to £3 million to grow in the US and other English-speaking countries as well.
And in terms of the ease of preparing for the Series A in the UK versus going through the earlier stages in Turkey, what would you say are the differences or even similarities between Turkish investors and UK-based investors in terms of the way that you engage with them?
Yeah, there's a great edtech ecosystem and investor ecosystem as well in the UK, and I think it's more easier than finding money in the UK, because UK is a very good gate for global companies to be a global company, and there are so many edtech vertical investors in the UK. But in Turkey, there were no edtech vertical investors. There are so many investors, but they are interested in several different sectors, such as energy, edtech, or gaming. But there are better edtech investors in the UK, and now we are in touch with 3 of them at the moment in the UK. And we want to finish this deal in 2020.
Okay, so that's good to hear that the UK is a great place for looking for investment. And I think Andrew mentioned in his presentation that the VC environment is very strong in the UK, with more than £10 billion being invested last year. Okay,
yes.
So Jacqueline, can I ask you a similar question? You already talked about the interest that some investors had expressed in LensLife. So how has that investment journey been for you in Australia versus coming to the UK and looking for the next round of investment?
I think Australia suffers the same problem as somewhere like Turkey insofar as you have some very clear verticals that investors are interested in that definitely align with what are priorities for our economy. So back home, if you're not a startup in property, agriculture or mining, you're probably going to struggle to get investment. We certainly did as a creative industries business. Yeah. Have a lot of our Australian customers, a lot of friends who work for creative companies back home, to grow, they've had to go and take money either from, private high net worth individuals and family offices, which are far and few between in Australia compared to here, or they've had to actually go overseas themselves to raise just to be able to go back and grow their business in the Australian market. So part of our reason for moving was, one, being closer to customers, but two, being closer to investors that actually recognise the creative industries as a meaningful vertical. And there are quite a few dedicated ones here. Felix Capital is fantastic, champion of the creative industries, Index Ventures as well. They've got wonderful operations here and they've been on a spending spree in spite of COVID, doing Series A and Series B rounds. So for us, I think my only advice really for companies, especially early stage businesses coming here, don't fall into the trap of trying to talk to too many British angels. The angel investment culture here is probably not as great as, say, the US in my experience. And that's largely because you've got, family office, private equity-backed investors who they're used to a certain kind of deal. And I think they're only just starting to play startups. But it becomes very different when you start getting into VC conversations and the like. So if you're a company that's, ready to raise VC, even if it's a seed round, London is a fantastic place to be. Absolutely. So our journey has certainly been mixed and it's taken some adjustment on our part in terms of moving away from talking to that angel cohort and actually taking a serious look at some of the local VC instead.
And I think that's a very interesting remark you mentioned about different kinds of funds. So there's some angels that are well experienced, some that have got a very particular view of the world. But same with VCs. There are some really focused on early stage funds, others that say, no, we're not going to touch anything before about Series B. And so it's a mixed picture, but I think also, as the point you mentioned, that there are dedicated funds and investors that look at specific sectors, be it creative, but also in education, financial services, and interesting in areas like health tech or even fashion tech. Where you wouldn't necessarily find that in some other countries. So that's very interesting to hear. Okay, thank you. Ite, Israel has a very strong investment ecosystem for VCs. What has been your experience in raising funding in Israel versus how that looks in the UK?
It's totally different, okay, because the level of angels in Israel, it is very easy, to raise a small amount of money between 150 to $500,000 from friends and families or from any person. Any person in Israel considers himself as an angel. But if you want to build a strong cap table and strong investors that will lead you towards the next step, I think you have to have, I would say, a UK presence in the cap table. So this is why we decided 2 years ago, one of the other co-founders moved to the UK. And we started when we started our operation, we started the conversation with the VC funds, family office, because we understand that it takes time. And but UK is more structured than Israel, I would say. In Israel, you can go and someone can invest between $500,000 to $1 million. But in UK, you know exactly to whom are you going to, and we find it more attractive for us because we know the phases and we know the stages. And we raised actually recently $4 million in the UK from a family office. So it's been good to us.
Well, that's great to hear, because we always recommend that companies come to they set up and then they start to raise funds. There are many, many different options, as we've already talked about. family offices, business angels, VCs, but there's also crowdfunding. And indeed, there are government-funded opportunities as well, so you can access innovation grants from organisations like Innovate UK. So we would recommend certainly talking to colleagues in the Department for International Trade to provide guidance and support and for companies that are just beginning this journey. Okay, so let's move on and talk about some other things more to do with the UK itself. Now, all of you have come to the UK and have established successful businesses here, but I guess that you may have had one or two challenges when you entered the UK market. So things that you didn't really expect, things that were a bit unusual, and you had to react quickly. So Resit is nodding his head. So let's go to Resit first and see what his experience has been about unusual things about the UK, things you had to react to.
The biggest challenge in the UK was entering the UK schools, and the teachers in the UK are very traditional when you compare in the US. But we have been overcoming this issue, and we are managing this. But I can say that the UK school ecosystem is very traditional. If you are a new company in the UK, that's the biggest challenge I have faced in the UK market.
And how easy was it to navigate your way through the school system? Because there are lots of different kinds of organisations in the education sector. Did you find that it was okay, easy to navigate, or was that a problem?
No, it's still a problem for us to enter the UK schools, because they are asking so many questions. They want to see so many research. We are making several academic research, but they want more. But I think we need some reference to enter more schools in the UK. And now we are getting some schools. And the pandemic helped us to enter schools, for remote learning. It's getting very popular nowadays.
Okay, thank you. And I think James and Joanna mentioned earlier about as your brand begins to become more established and as get examples of UK customers, the word of mouth part becomes increasingly important. Okay, so Caroline, with LensLife, what has been unusual, unexpected, or challenging in the UK market compared to Australia?
Look, for us personally, one of the biggest challenges we've had in relocating here, I look in terms of planning, is certainly Brexit. Be under no illusions that the uncertainty around Brexit is problematic, and it's something that you need to plan for and consider if you are planning to move here. So we moved here on a whim. We made the decision to move in June, and by August I'd relocated here, and obviously it's a very big move from Australia. We kind of put Brexit in the basket of, we'll worry about it when we get there. And one of the things that has surprised me, obviously we were getting a lot of encouragement from DIT and the government to come over and relocate the company and that everything's going to be fine. But of course, uncertainty is never fine for any business. So we've noticed that there's actually a lot more emphasis being placed on Brexit planning than I would have expected from BC. Just in terms of preparing for, how to mitigate your downside risk of a bad no-deal Brexit. And that was something that we hadn't expected we were going to have to address in such a particular, a particularized way. But I suppose that's a reflection of where things are currently at with trade talks and whatever else. So that's probably been the biggest challenge, because the creative industries especially very, very, very much so global and very Eurocentric, especially when you're talking about fashion and retail, which are one of the industries specifically that we're looking at. And I think technology sector as well, you're looking at, hiring talent, and that you've got some wonderful universities here, but we've also noticed that a lot of our initial, subcontractors and that are Europeans working in the UK. So it's something that we've had to think about what that's going to mean moving forward. As an early stage company, you can't necessarily afford to sponsor every single person you employ for visas and the like. So that's probably been the biggest challenge, is that we really had to reframe our thinking around what it's going to mean for us.
Yes, and I think a lot of companies are thinking, well, what is Brexit actually going to mean for me? And there's still some uncertainty, of course, and we're in a transition period, and there are things that are gradually going to be clarified and liked the process for visas. There was a very long document that was produced I think in July of this year, about 160 pages of detail, and yet it's still not quite finalized. But I think there are certainly directions that are becoming clearer. But I think your point is very well taken, that all companies need to think and prepare for that. Meantime, there was the COVID going on as well, which has made life, I think, much more complex for many companies in that respect. But Ite, from your perspective for ProPrep, what were the kind of unusual or unexpected things that you came across as you thought about coming to the UK and as you arrived here to start doing business? What surprised you? What was difficult to deal with?
Yeah, I would say something that may surprise you, but all the process of establishing the company, getting the legal advisor, finding the right bookkeeper and everything, that was very easy. Even opening the bank account, everything went very easy and much more faster than we expected. In terms of, there's a big uncertainty, as Jack mentioned, regarding the Brexit, and this is something that we do not know how it will go, but we are preparing ourselves for any option, and this will also affect the market because we do not understand how many foreign students will come to the UK, and we understand this is a very strong market in the UK, the foreign students. So this is something that we need to be aware of. This is a challenge for us. And in terms of the market itself, the COVID-19 made a lot of changes and the accessibility to the UK, etc. But it's not something different than any other country. But I think that people in the technology understand that UK is going to be a leader in technology, and we have access to any person that we want because it's technology. So this is something for us.
That's good to know about the experiences, the setup process and the bank account. And as we touched with Jacqueline, certainly the Brexit part is still uncertain. But I think that's very good advice to companies who are participating today. Speaking of advice, I think everybody, as they begin their journey to the UK, they talk to lots of different people, lots of advisors. So like some of our colleagues who were presenting this morning. But there may have been one individual or one organization that's given you some absolutely critical advice during your journey. So if I turn to Rezit and ask you, what was the best piece of advice you got, either before you arrived or when you did arrive to the UK?
Yeah, I can mention two. The first one is the UCL Educate program. We joined the program in 2018, and it was very, very helpful both in academic and business sides. Our mentors were great and helped us to understand the market and grow, both in the UK and globally. And the other one is our mentor in DIT. Before being accepted to the program, they helped us to understand the UK ecosystem, the DIT ecosystem, and they helped us very well, and they are still helping us in different issues. And I can say that both UCL Educate program, mentors in UCL, and our mentor in DIT.
Thanks, Rezit. That's good to hear as well. And Ite, can I ask you the same question about the best piece of advice that you got, either before you arrived in the UK or when you came here?
If it's someone new that coming to the UK, go to the UK embassy. Okay, the UK embassy at your country, because they will assist you. So this is, the first move or the first step. And then stick with the other companies in your field, even though that you may have competitors, etc. But if you approach, the other companies, they will assist you because you're in the same business, you're in the same market, and then you will get the best advice. But first of all, go to the UK embassy at your country, because for us it very helped us. We approached the UK embassy in Israel, and they kind of met for us the education market. And then we had, when we went to the market, we know exactly whom to approach and how to approach. So this is my best advice,
Thanks, Itay. That's great advice to pass on to colleagues this morning. And finally, Jacqueline, same question for you, the best advice that you got either before you left Australia, coming to the UK, or when you got here in terms of how to make your business successful?
One of the best things that happened with us was actually I happened to meet another founder from Australia who was, more progressed in their move on a trip over to London, and they connected me with DIT. And so Ellis at DIT was fantastic. She's been super helpful with us, and so have Tess in the Australian team back home. So that's the Department of International Trade. They are fantastic in terms of their network of partner companies and other government organisations that they can connect you with to assist. It could be industry specific if you want to get in touch with universities, which we have, or city specific. We ended up getting connected with London and Partners, which was incredible for us. Our mentor at London and Partners, Vanessa Roma, she does specifically the creative industries. She was brilliant. So I think having those sorts of support networks in place where you can trust the advice you're getting, it's not necessarily a private company with their own agenda and motivation for trying to take on new clients and new business. Most of these resources are government, so they're solid. I think that's really, really important as a founder. And get yourself a mentor. I have a mentor in the US who I've had for a while because I spent time in New York in my previous job, but I got myself a mentor here on the ground in the UK. I think that's invaluable for founders, just generally have someone that you can go to for practical advice and ask questions, and who know the market and they know the lay of the land.
Thanks, Jacqueline. And I think so there's some take-home messages there from all of our panelists this morning. Firstly, talk to the British Embassy, talk to the Department for International Trade in your home market. Talk to people who've been there and done it before you. Tap into the experience of other entrepreneurs through mentors, and don't necessarily assume anything is going to be quite as you expected. Always test and validate and check before you go too far. So I'd like to say thank you very much to Recep, to Jacqueline, and to some fantastic stories. And I wish you every more success with your businesses. And I'd now like to pass back to Andrew to wrap up today's session. Andrew, over to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Chris. We do have time for any further questions if anyone wants to put any in the Q&A field. But thank you very much for everyone attending. Thank you for the panelists as well. It was great to hear about the opportunities that you found, especially given the EdTech links, and a lot of the audience based on the poll seem to be in the EdTech space, so that's a fantastic fit. Also great to hear DIT have been really helpful. I can promise we've not planted these panelists here. We've not told them to give great feedback about DIT, so it's nice to get it unsolicited. So I'm very, very pleased that the guys over here can help you. And again, as Chris says, one of the things we will say is reach out to the embassies and consulates around the world where DIT has people, and they will link you up with people in the UK. So you've got both perspectives of the overseas and the UK side, and link you in with people like myself, Chris, Ellis, who was mentioned there as well. There is a contact slide there, Robbie, if you can bring that up, please, showing our contacts. Please feel free to get in touch with any of us via phone, email, LinkedIn, Twitter, however you want to do it. We're more than happy to continue this conversation with you wherever you are on the journey, whether that's you're just thinking about the UK or whether you're further on in your decision-making process. And as I say, we can help in all manner of ways to help you progress your investment journey. And thank you very much for your time.